Thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts on effective data team practices. But I first wanted to begin by expressing to each of you my gratitude for the start of a great school year. On behalf of the board and the administration, we certainly recognize all that faculty and staff do on a daily basis to positively impact our students each and every day. We also recognize that there are a lot of responsibilities and tasks that you have to carry along the way. So our hope as a district is that we're able to have honest and true conversations as to what matters most for kids, to not only focus on the things we need to be focusing on, but certainly to alleviate some of the things that may weight us down or that may lead us in a different direction. So today I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking to you a little bit about effective data teams practices. And I think of an analogy that I heard not too long ago about running a race. Whether it's a 1K, a 5K, or a marathon, the importance is to pace ourselves, to be persistent, to begin with the end in mind, and probably the most critical piece is, if you've ever run a race, the encouragement that comes along with it. Whether it's you encouraging others or others that are encouraging you toward that finish line. We all start at the same point, but we quickly begin to pace ourselves out and spread out along the way. And so keep that in mind as we have our conversations about our practices as a school district. As it relates to data teams, we talk about data teams as it relates to content areas, grade levels, within the classroom or at the school level. We also want to keep in mind the work that we do as a district in regard to our data teams process at the district level. We've really started at the school, the building, the classroom level, but are certainly beginning to look at that as a district overall in terms of those points of data that are most critical in terms of watching, keeping an eye on, and holding ourselves accountable to. As many of you know, there are some key components to effective data team practices. They start with standards, they encompass assessment, analysis, and then collaboration in regard to what effective instruction looks like. That really is our focus. In terms of quality instruction for the purpose of impacting student learning each and every day. If you think about standards to begin with and the importance of unwrapping standards, at the school level, the process needs to ultimately include all staff. It needs to be a prioritization process. It needs to clearly define the procedures of unwrapping those standards. I like the analogy that Larry Ainsworth uses as far as kind of unraveling an accordion and beginning to look at all facets of a particular standard. It also infuses standards into the data team process, allowing for vertical conversations so that we have an ability to set expectations, to eliminate gaps, or identify any omissions along the way. The second critical piece is in regard to assessment. And it really begins with us having a collective understanding of what good and true assessment looks like. Maybe utilizing some common vocabulary, defining terms, but then also in the questions that we ask in respect to our daily assessments, our summative and our formative assessments. Questions that might include what are the different types of assessments? What are the different purposes of assessments? Which assessments will provide teachers with the best information? And then also, who's the primary audience for the assessment results? The final question to keep in mind would be, when and how do students receive feedback? And I think this is an important piece to keep in mind, and that's that successful data teams do a couple of things. They use teacher leaders that are well-versed in assessment to facilitate professional development. They create maps for the year to include both summative and formative assessments. They also use formative assessments to provide feedback to students and inform instruction along the way. Along with that feedback comes the opportunity to involve students in the data teams process. And if you keep this in mind, it allows students to answer a couple of questions. One of which, where am I going? Another one, where am I now? And then finally, how can I close that gap? Both from the student perspective, but that also allows opportunity for teachers to hone in and personalize for the needs of each child. The third piece is obviously the data analysis that is accompanied in the data teams process. Our ability to analyze student performance in order to inform instruction and learning. Instructional strategies, according to the Leadership and Learning Center, is simply defined as deliberate actions of adults that impact the cognition of students. Those strategies can be identified that perhaps have the greatest impact on students and what needs they possess. That's the value of the collaborative data team process. In essence, we're all instructional leaders, whether it's at the grade level, the content area, the school level, and their building data teams, or even at the district level. And really being able to focus on strategies that have the greatest impact is certainly where we want to be. So a couple of ways that we can focus on instruction and the data team process includes creating an inventory of our practices, building our own capacity along the way, continuous learning through action research, book studies, learning communities, incorporating coaching and peer observations when we're able, modeling research-based strategies, and then openness to be able to accept, but then also to be able to give feedback to our colleagues. So much like that marathon analogy, we're all at different places of our understanding as it relates to implementation of data teams. Our hope is to be able to support one another, support you in your efforts, while celebrating the positive impact that each of you are having on our Liberty Public School students. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to share a few thoughts. Hope you have a great rest of today and a great weekend.